Amara's hands trembled as she raised the gun, her finger hovering over the trigger. The man holding her sister hostage laughed, his scarred face twisted with cruel amusement. "You don't have it in you, nurse. You save lives. You don't take them." Behind her, Dante's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Amara, don't—" But she'd already made her choice. The gunshot shattered the silence, and everything changed forever. But you're probably wondering how a Nigerian nurse ended up in a warehouse in Dubai, holding a gun and staring down a Russian mobster. Well, it all started with a soccer ball, a 5-year-old's innocent mistake, and a one-night stand that should have stayed buried in the past. Before we dive into this wild story of danger, love, and family, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button because you're about to witness one of the most emotional stories we've ever told. And smash that like button if you believe in second chances. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this. Now, let's go back to where it all began, 5 years ago in Rome, when Amara Okafor had no idea that one perfect night would drag her into the dangerous world of the Mafia. The gunshot echoed through the marble lobby of the Burj Al Sahara Hotel, and Amara's scream tore from her throat as she watched her 5-year-old son disappear into a crowd of armed men. She'd only looked away for a second, 1 second to grab their room key from her purse, and Kofi had kicked his soccer ball straight into what looked like a private Mafia meeting. But let's rewind, because this story doesn't start with gunfire in Dubai. It starts 5 years earlier, in Rome, with a woman who had no idea that one perfect night would change her entire life. Amara Okafor was 28 when she presented her research on pediatric cardiac care at the International Medical Conference in Rome. She was brilliant, confident, and had worked 3 jobs to afford the trip from Lagos. She wasn't looking for romance. She wasn't looking for anything except professional recognition and maybe some decent Italian wine. Then she saw him across the conference hall during the welcome reception. He was tall, dark-haired, with eyes the color of a stormy Mediterranean sea. He wore an expensive suit like it was a second skin, and when their eyes met, something electric passed between them. He smiled. She smiled back. Within an hour, they were talking. Within 3 hours, they were walking along the Tiber River, sharing stories and laughter that felt unnaturally easy for 2 strangers. "What do you do?" Amara had asked, tipsy on wine and moonlight. "I handle family business," he'd said, which should have been a red flag. But his smile made her forget to ask follow-up questions. His name was Dante. Just Dante. No last name exchanged in the whirlwind of that night where they danced in a small jazz club, kissed under the Trevi fountain, and ended up in his hotel, room-making love like they'd been waiting their whole lives for each other. When Amara woke the next morning, he was gone. Just a note on the pillow. "You're extraordinary. I'll never forget you. D." She never saw him again. Never got his number, his last name, or any way to contact him. 2 months later, when the pregnancy test showed positive, she tried everything to find him. But Dante and family business in Italy led nowhere. So Amara did what strong women do. She raised her son alone, moved back to Lagos to be near her sister Kioma, and built a life that had no room for fairy tale endings. Kofi grew up asking about his father. "Where is he, Mommy? Why doesn't he visit?" "He had to go far away, baby," Amara would say, kissing his forehead. "But he gave me you, and you're the best gift in the world." Kofi had his father's eyes, gray-green and piercing, set in a face that was a perfect blend of Amara's Nigerian features and those Italian genes. He was smart, energetic, and had a habit of asking questions that broke Amara's heart. By the time Kofi turned 5, Amara's sister Kioma was pushing her to take a vacation. "You work yourself to death at that hospital," Kioma said, braiding Amara's hair one Saturday afternoon. "Take the boy somewhere nice. Live a little." So Amara booked a week in Dubai, a healing trip, a chance to spoil Kofi, and maybe, finally, let go of the ghost of a man she'd spent one night with 5 years ago. She had no idea that Dante Moretti, the man who haunted her dreams, was the heir to one of the most powerful crime families in southern Europe. She had no idea that he'd kept that photo of them from Rome in his desk drawer, looking at it on nights when the weight of his bloody empire felt too heavy. And she certainly had no idea that he'd be in the exact same hotel in Dubai for a summit with his associates. The Burj Al Sahara was a palace of gold and marble. Kofi's eyes went wide when they walked into the lobby, his small hand gripping Amara's tightly. "Mommy, are we rich now?" Amara laughed. "No, baby. But for 1 week, we're going to pretend we are." They checked in, spent the afternoon by the pool, and Kofi made friends with other children, while Amara actually relaxed for the first time in months. She didn't notice the security detail that arrived that evening, or the way the hotel staff suddenly became more nervous and attentive to the VIP section being cordoned off in the main lobby. The next morning, while Amara was checking her phone, Kofi grabbed his soccer ball and ran toward the lobby's open space. He kicked it with all the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old who'd just learned a new trick. The ball sailed through the air, bounced twice, and rolled directly into a restricted area marked with red velvet ropes and guarded by men in black suits. "Kofi, no!" Amara shouted, but he was already ducking under the rope, chasing his ball. The security men moved to intercept him, but Kofi was fast. He grabbed his ball just as it hit someone's leg. He looked up ready to apologize and froze. The man staring down at him had his eyes, the exact same gray-green color, the same sharp nose, the same slight dimple in his left cheek. "Dad?" The word fell from Kofi's lips before his brain could catch up. The room went silent. 20 dangerous men in expensive suits all turned to stare. And Dante Moretti, who'd just been discussing a weapons shipment with his lieutenants, felt his world tilt on its axis. He knew those eyes. He'd seen them in the mirror every day of his life. And he knew that face, even though it was smaller, younger, impossibly innocent. Because he'd spent 5 years trying to forget the woman who'd given this child those features. "Kofi!" Amara's voice cut through the silence as she rushed into the restricted area. Then she saw him, really saw him, and the color drained from her face. "Dante?" He turned to her, and for a moment, the ruthless Mafia lord disappeared, replaced by the man who'd held her under the Roman stars. "Amara." His men shifted, uncomfortable with the emotion in their boss's voice. Marco, Dante's right-hand man, stepped forward. "Boss, should we leave us?" Dante said quietly, his eyes never leaving Amara's face. "But the meeting, I said leave us." There was steel in his voice now, the kind that made men obey without question. The room cleared in seconds. Only Amara, Dante, and Kofi remained in the vast lobby space, security maintaining a perimeter at a distance. Kofi looked between them, his small face confused but hopeful. "Mommy, is this really my dad?" Amara wanted to run. She wanted to grab Kofi and disappear. But Dante's eyes held her frozen, and the truth was written all over her face. "Is he mine?" Dante asked, his voice rough. She could have lied, should have lied, but she'd never been good at deception. "Yes." Dante's knees nearly buckled. He crouched down to Kofi's level, studying every detail of his son's face. "What's your name?" "Kofi. Kofi Okafor. I'm 5 years old. I like soccer and cartoons, and my mommy makes the best jollof rice in the whole world." The words tumbled out in a rush. "Are you really my daddy? Mommy said you had to go far away." Something cracked in Dante's chest. He'd killed men. He'd built an empire on violence and fear. But nothing had ever broken him like this child's innocent hope. "I didn't know about you," he said, looking up at Amara. "I swear to God I didn't know." "I tried to find you," Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I tried, but you just disappeared. You didn't even give me your last name." "Moretti," he said, standing. "Dante Moretti." She recognized the name immediately. You didn't grow up reading international news without knowing about the Moretti family. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, God, you're not what you thought. I know." He looked at Kofi again, something fierce and protective blazing in his eyes. "But I am his father, and we need to talk. Privately." Amara grabbed Kofi's hand. "We're leaving. Right now." "Amara." "No. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not letting you pull us into whatever world you live in. Come on, Kofi." But Dante caught her arm, gently but firmly. "It's too late for that." "What do you mean?" Marco appeared from the shadows, his face grim. "Boss, we have a problem. Word's already spreading. The Volkovs have people in the hotel. They saw the kid." Dante's expression went cold and deadly. "How many?" "At least 3 spotters we've identified. Maybe more." "Who are the Volkovs?" Amara demanded, fear creeping into her voice. Dante looked at her, and she saw the weight of his world in those eyes. "My enemies. And if they know about Kofi, they'll use him to get to me. You can't leave, Amara. Not safely. Not anymore." The reality hit her like a physical blow. One moment of letting Kofi out of her sight, and their entire lives had imploded. "This can't be happening," she whispered. Kofi tugged on her hand. "Mommy, I'm scared." Dante knelt again, his voice gentle. "Hey, Kofi. Do you like adventures?" The boy nodded hesitantly. "Good. Because we're going to go on one right now. You and your mom are going to stay with me for a little while, okay? I have a really cool place with a big TV and lots of toys." "Will you teach me soccer?" Kofi asked, and Amara nearly sobbed at how quickly her son was attaching to this dangerous stranger. "I'll teach you everything," Dante promised, and the vow in his voice made it clear he meant more than sports. Within the hour, Amara and Kofi were moved to Dante's penthouse suite. It occupied the entire top floor of the hotel, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Persian Gulf and security so tight that even room service required 3 levels of clearance. Kofi was fascinated by everything: the giant TV, the game consoles, the balcony with its infinity pool. He didn't understand the danger. He just knew he'd found his father, and in the innocent logic of a 5-year-old, that made everything an adventure. Amara understood perfectly. She stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching the sun set over Dubai, while armed men patrolled the hallways outside. "I know you're angry," Dante said from behind her. "Angry?" She turned, and he was struck by the fire in her eyes. "I'm furious. I'm terrified. I don't even know what I am. 5 years, Dante. 5 years I raised him alone. And now, in one day, everything's... I know." He moved closer but didn't touch her. "If I'd known about him, I would have moved heaven and earth to be there. But I didn't give you my full name. Didn't give you a way to contact me. Because I thought I was protecting you from my world." "Well, that worked brilliantly," she said bitterly. "Amara, what do you want from us? Really?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I want to know my son. I want to keep you both safe, and I want—" He trailed off, jaw tightening. "I spent 5 years with you living in my head. I told myself it was just a perfect night, nothing more. But seeing you again, I know I was lying to myself." Her breath caught. Don't do this. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. But I need you to understand. My enemies will come for you now. The only way to survive is to let me protect you." "For how long? Forever? If that's what it takes." The next morning, Dante insisted on a DNA test. Amara agreed, knowing it would give her time to think. While they waited for results, Dante took Kofi to the hotel pool, surrounded by security disguised as other guests. Amara watched from a lounger, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously, as she watched Dante teach Kofi to swim. He was patient, gentle, encouraging. Everything a father should be. And Kofi was glowing, laughing in a way she hadn't seen since his grandmother passed last year. "He's good with him." Kioma's voice came through Amara's phone. She'd called her sister to explain the impossible situation. "That's what scares me," Amara admitted. "Kofi's already attached. What happens when Dante's world catches up with us?" "Maybe you let him handle it. Maybe that's what he's good at." "He's a criminal, Kioma. He's also Kofi's father. And from what you've told me, he didn't choose to abandon you. Life just happened." Amara watched Dante lift Kofi in the air, spinning him around as her son shrieked with joy. "I spent 5 years convincing myself he wasn't worth remembering, that he was just a mistake. Was he?" "No," she whispered. "He was the best night of my life, and that's why it hurt so much when he disappeared." The DNA results came back that afternoon, 99.99% probability of paternity. Dante stared at the paper for a full minute, then carefully folded it and put it in his wallet, right next to that old photo of him and Amara in Rome. "So it's official," Amara said. "It was always official," Dante replied. "This just proves what I already knew the moment I saw him." He looked at her, vulnerable in a way she suspected few people ever witnessed. I have a son, and I missed 5 years of his life. You didn't know. Doesn't matter. I still missed it. His first word, his first steps. Every birthday." His voice cracked. "But I'm here now, and I'm not missing anything else." That should have been their happy ending. A family reunited against all odds. But at 2 a.m., Marco burst into the penthouse with news that shattered their fragile peace. "They took her," he said, out of breath. "The Volkovs. They took Amara's sister." Amara went ice cold. "What?" Marco handed Dante a phone showing a video. Kioma, bound to a chair in a dark room, tears streaming down her face. A masked man spoke in Russian-accented English. "The boy for the sister. Tomorrow night. We'll send coordinates. Come alone, Moretti, or she dies." Amara's scream woke Kofi. Dante immediately went to him, soothing him back to sleep, while Amara collapsed on the couch, sobbing into her hands. "This is my fault," she gasped. "She's innocent. She has nothing to do with any of this." Dante sat beside her, and this time he did pull her close. "This is my fault, my world. But I swear to you, I'll get her back." "How? They want Kofi." "They're not getting him." The ice in his voice was absolute. "No one touches my son." "Then how?" "I'll figure it out. I always do." But as the night wore on and Dante made call after call, coordinating with his people, Amara saw the strain in his face. The Volkovs were smart. They'd grabbed Kioma in Lagos, far from Dante's sphere of influence. They had the upper hand. Unless Amara did something about it. "I'm coming with you," she said as dawn broke over Dubai. "Absolutely not." She's my sister, and you need me. What I need is for you to stay here with Kofi where it's safe. What you need is someone they won't expect." She stood, facing him down. "I can be your advantage." They argued for an hour, but Amara was immovable. Finally, Dante gave in, but only after extracting a promise that she'd stay behind his men and do exactly what he said. They left Kofi with Marco and Dante's most trusted guards. The little boy cried, sensing something was wrong. "Daddy, don't go," he sobbed, and the word nearly destroyed Dante. He knelt, cupping Kofi's face. "I have to help your aunt, but I promise, I'm coming back. We both are. And then we're going to be a family, okay? You promise?" "I promise." The warehouse was on the outskirts of Dubai, in an industrial area that looked abandoned but hummed with predatory energy. Dante's team moved with military precision, surrounding the building while he and Amara approached the main entrance. "Remember," he said, checking his gun one final time, "you stay behind me, always." She nodded, her own hands shaking as she held the weapon Marco had given her. She'd never fired a gun before, but Marco had given her a crash course. Point and shoot. Don't think. Just act. They entered the warehouse and immediately spotlights blinded them. Amara heard Kioma scream her name. "Welcome, Moretti," a voice called out in Russian-inflected English. "I was hoping you'd be stupid enough to come." Viktor Volkov stepped into the light, a massive man with scars covering half his face. Behind him, at least a dozen armed men, and in the center, tied to a chair, was Kioma. "Let her go," Dante said calmly. "Where's the boy?" "Safe, and he's staying that way." Victor laughed. "Then your woman's sister dies." He raised his gun, pointing it at Kioma's head. "Wait." Amara stepped forward before Dante could stop her. "Take me instead, please. She has nothing to do with this. But I'm Kofi's mother. I'm worth more as leverage." "Amara, no." Dante reached for her. "Interesting," Victor mused. "The mother offers herself? Very noble, but I don't think—" Amara never let him finish. She raised her gun and fired. The shot went wide, missing Victor but hitting one of his men in the shoulder. Chaos erupted. Dante's team burst in from all sides, and suddenly the warehouse was a war zone. Dante moved like death itself, protecting Amara while taking down anyone who got close. She made it to Kioma, cutting her bonds with shaking hands. "Are you insane?" Kioma gasped. "Probably." Victor appeared from nowhere, grabbing Amara and pressing a gun to her temple. "Moretti, stop, or she dies." Everything froze. Dante turned, and the look on his face was pure murder. "Let her go! Drop your weapon." Dante did slowly, his eyes never leaving Amara's face. "Take me instead. I'm the one you want." "True, but killing you doesn't hurt as much as making you watch her die." Amara felt the cold press of the gun against her skin. Time slowed. She thought of Kofi, of the future they'd never have, of Dante and the life they might have built. Then she remembered Marco's training. Don't think. Just act. She drove her elbow backward into Victor's ribs, twisted, and grabbed a fallen gun from the floor. Victor's shot went wild. Amara fired 3 times. Victor fell. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Dante was there, pulling her into his arms, checking her for injuries. "You shot him," he said, something like awe in his voice. "He was going to kill me," she said numbly. "I couldn't. I have to get back to Kofi." They extracted quickly, Dante's team covering their escape. By the time they reached the penthouse, Amara was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Kofi ran to them, and they both dropped to their knees, holding him tight. "You came back," he said, his voice muffled against Dante's chest. "Always," Dante promised. "Always." That night, after Kofi fell asleep between them on the massive bed, Dante and Amara finally talked. "You saved my life tonight," he said quietly. "You've been saving ours since we got here. Amara, I know this isn't the life you wanted, but I can't change what I am. I can try to be better, for Kofi, for you. But my world is now our world," she finished. "I'm not naive. I know what being with you means. But Kofi deserves his father, and She paused, gathering courage. "I never stopped thinking about you, even when I tried, even when I told myself you were just a mistake." He touched her face, thumb brushing away a tear. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and him." They kissed then, soft and desperate and full of 5 years of longing. 6 months later, Amara stood on the terrace of Dante's villa in Sicily, watching Kofi play soccer with Marco and some of the other men. Her sister was visiting, having forgiven them both for the trauma of Dubai, though she now insisted on a security detail whenever she traveled. The villa was beautiful, secure, and surprisingly full of love. Dante had stepped back from the violent side of his business, delegating more, choosing his family over his empire whenever possible. He wasn't a saint, but he was trying, and that was enough. "Mommy, Dad, watch this!" Kofi shouted, and both of them turned to see their son execute a perfect bicycle kick. "Did you see that?" Dante laughed, pulling Amara close. "He's going to be a professional." "He's going to be whatever he wants to be," Amara corrected, "as long as it's not a Mafia boss." "Deal." Kofi ran up to them, face flushed with happiness. "Can we have cake now? Marco said it's a really big one." "It's not your birthday," Amara reminded him. "I know, but Dad said every day with family is worth celebrating." Amara looked at Dante, who shrugged with a smile. "I might have said that." They cut into the elaborate cake Marco had somehow procured, and Kofi's eyes went wide. This is the best family ever. Later, after their son was asleep, Amara and Dante sat under the stars, much like they had in Rome all those years ago. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "That night in Rome? Everything that came after?" She thought about the fear, the danger, the complete upheaval of her carefully planned life. Then she thought about Kofi's laughter, Dante's hands in hers, the unexpected family they'd built from chaos. "Not for a second," she said. "Do you? Never. Though I wish I'd gotten your number." She laughed. "Next time you have a one-night stand with a nurse from Nigeria, get her number." "There won't be a next time. I'm keeping this one." And he did. They married a year later in a small ceremony that blended Nigerian and Italian traditions, with Kofi as the ring-bearer, who took his job very seriously. The Volkovs never troubled them again. Other enemies came and went, but Dante's reputation for protecting his family was absolute, and most decided it wasn't worth the risk. Amara continued her work as a nurse, using Dante's resources to fund clinics across Sicily and Lagos. Kofi grew up bilingual, brilliant, and remarkably well-adjusted, considering his father ran an empire built on shadows. He never wanted to join the family business. He became a doctor instead, making both his parents incredibly proud. And sometimes, on quiet nights, Amara would find Dante looking at that old photo from Rome, the one he'd kept all these years. "What are you thinking?" she'd ask. "That I made a promise to a 5-year-old boy 6 years ago. I told him we'd be a family. And we are. And we are," he'd agree, pulling her close. "Best decision I ever made was chasing a soccer ball into that lobby." She'd laugh. Kofi made that decision, not you. Then he's smarter than both of us. Their story wasn't conventional. It wasn't safe or predictable or anything Amara had planned for her life. But it was theirs, built from a one-night stand, a mistaken word, and a love that refused to die even when separated by continents and circumstances. Some families are born, others are built. Theirs was both. And if you enjoyed this story of unexpected love, dangerous reunions, and the family that survived it all, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional stories that'll keep you hooked until the very end. Drop a comment below telling us, would you give a Mafia lord a second chance if he was the father of your child? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you made it this far, you're part of our community now. So welcome. We post new stories every week, and trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, remember that sometimes the best families are the ones we never saw coming.